History is filled with battles that ended exactly as expected. Larger armies crushed smaller ones. Stronger forces erased weaker resistance. Most stories follow predictable paths, where numbers decide outcomes and survival favors the powerful. But once in a while, history records a moment so unlikely that it forces us to question everything we believe about war. This is the story of the battle no one expected them to survive. From the very beginning, the situation looked hopeless. A massive army advanced with confidence, its numbers stretching far beyond the horizon. Their soldiers were experienced, well-supplied, and certain of victory. They had fought before. They had conquered before. To them, this was not a battle, but a formality. Facing them was a much smaller force, few in number, exhausted from previous fighting, poorly supplied, with no reinforcements waiting beyond the hills. Many believed these defenders would be wiped out before the day was over. Even allies quietly prepared for the worst. But the defenders did not run. They understood something the enemy did not. Survival does not always depend on strength. Sometimes it depends on endurance, discipline, and the refusal to collapse when fear demands surrender. They knew they could not win by charging forward or matching force with force. Their only chance was to hold. The battlefield offered no mercy. The land was harsh and unforgiving. Narrow paths, uneven ground, and natural choke points shaped every movement. Where the larger army saw obstacles, the defenders saw opportunity. This terrain was their only ally, and they intended to use it fully. As the enemy advanced, confidence filled their ranks. Thousands moved forward together, believing pressure alone would end resistance. But almost immediately, frustration began to grow. Wide formations compressed into narrow columns. Units at the rear could not reach the front. Orders took longer to travel. Movement slowed. The army felt heavy, crowded, uncomfortable. The defenders waited. They did not rush into open ground. They did not waste energy on reckless attacks. They chose positions where only a few enemies could fight at once, where numbers meant nothing, where discipline mattered more than force. When the first clash came, it shocked everyone. The defenders held, shield to shield, shoulder to shoulder. Each warrior trusted the one beside him. Panic would have destroyed them faster than any blade. Instead, they stood firm, absorbing the impact and giving nothing back. The enemy attacked again and again, each time expecting the line to break, each time surprised when it did not. As the hours passed, exhaustion began to show. Heavy armor slowed movement. Weapons felt heavier with every strike. The larger army fought longer and harder, but gained nothing. Meanwhile, the defenders fought in controlled bursts. They rotated tired warriors. They rested where terrain allowed. They conserved strength carefully, knowing that time was on their side. This battle was no longer about victory. It was about survival. Psychological pressure mounted on the attackers. How could such a small force still stand? Confidence cracked. Doubt spread quietly through the ranks. Doubt turned into hesitation. Hesitation into fear. Fear is contagious. The defenders sensed the shift. They did not celebrate it. They did not chase it. They applied pressure only where it mattered. Brief counterattacks, sudden resistance, then silence again. They refused to overextend. They refused to give the enemy an opening. As daylight faded, uncertainty grew. The attackers had expected cheers of victory by now. Instead, they faced silence and resistance that refused to weaken. Darkness magnified every sound. Every shadow felt threatening. Sleep was difficult. Rest was incomplete. By morning, the larger army was physically present but mentally drained. When pressure resumed, it lacked coordination. Units advanced without support. Others hesitated, waiting for orders that never came. Commanders argued. Signals conflicted. Momentum vanished. The defenders responded the same way they always had. Calm, controlled, disciplined. They blocked advances, withdrew carefully, reformed, and held again. To the attackers, it felt as if the defenders could never be moved, as if the land itself resisted them. Eventually, the truth became undeniable. They could not break through. Continuing the assault meant exhaustion and loss. Retreat meant humiliation. Pride battled reality. But reality always wins. The decision to withdraw was not announced loudly. There were no speeches, no dramatic signals. It began quietly. Units pulled back slightly. Lines loosened. Soldiers began looking behind them instead of forward. The defenders noticed immediately. They did not pursue, they did not celebrate. A cornered enemy is dangerous, and they understood that survival required discipline until the very end. When the massive army finally retreated, the battlefield fell silent. The defenders still stood. No cheers followed, no grand celebration, only relief. They had survived what no one believed they could, against expectation, against logic, against fear itself. News of the battle spread quickly across regions and courts. Disbelief followed. How could so many fail against so few? How could a force expected to be destroyed still exist? The answer was uncomfortable. Because numbers without control are meaningless. Because morale breaks before bodies do. Because endurance can defeat power. This battle became more than a military event. It became a reminder written into history that survival itself can be victory. At strength is not always loud or overwhelming. Sometimes it is quiet, disciplined, and unyielding. The warriors who stood that day did not win by destroying their enemy. They won by refusing to disappear. And that is why this story still matters. Because it proves that sometimes the greatest triumph in war is not conquest, but survival against all expectation.